Alright, so I figured I would do this quick video on how to clean a carburetor real quick. You can know when to clean a carburetor if the thing doesn't start, or if it runs and it revs up and down like woo, woo, woo. Or if it runs really rough. That's usually a carburetor thing. But anyway, here's the generator. So as you see, the front over here, you have your air box. So you undo these clips, you pull this off, and then that shows you the air filter. So as you can see, this air filter, obviously it has a problem. It's got a big hole in it for some reason, maybe mice, but this was actually dirtier. I cleaned it off so I could do this video. So once that's off, you see all these screws, these nuts. So the carburetor is usually right behind the air box, which is, this is the carburetor right here. So for taking these off, I like to use something like this. Works really well and it's quick, but I don't use this for putting it back on because you can over tighten them and break these studs off, and that's never good. So I'm gonna pull out, and there are two different size screws, nuts here. So there are 6 small ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's 2 bigger ones behind here. So you can't get to those until you take this outer one off. So I'm going to take this outer one off first. I'm going to pause the video while I do that. So now that I pulled those 6 nuts off, this comes out and it exposes everything behind it. So that is the opening to the carburetor, so on and so forth. Then you'll see behind here, there are these 2 tubes. There's this one and this one. And you just pull those out. So they just come right out, basically. And then, there you go. So now you take off these 2, which I'm going to pause this for to do. So now that those 2 are off, now this thing kind of slides out. Oh, I forgot there's one more nut behind there. So yeah, so this thing slides out. You take it off, put it off to the side, and now there's your carburetor and your fuel line. So you make sure the fuel's off, which it is because I turned it off. And you usually grab this with a pair of pliers, you squeeze it together, you move that out of the way, and you kind of just twist this thing and pull it until it slides off. So as you can probably see, the gasket just fell off. Don't lose that. And also, if it's stuck on there, do not break it off, because if you break it off, you're not going to be able to put this back together. So that's off, so put it to the side. Alright, so then once the fuel line is off of the carburetor, you can kind of pull this off. I'm going to try to position this in a way that I don't have to hold it. Anyway, I really can't. But anyway, so you pull this, kind of slide this carburetor off, and you'll notice the throttle mechanism is still stuck to it with the spring. So the way you handle that is you figure out how this works. So obviously the spring comes right out and slides out of that, and then this comes up and out. Now the carburetor's off. Now to clean the carburetor, some of them are different. This one has this little nut on the bottom that holds the bowl on. Some of them screw on, but just grab little ratchet, little socket. Doesn't have, when you put it together, it doesn't have to be crazy tight, just snug. So pull the thing off, and there's the bowl. When you first do this is empty because I already did this once, and I'm doing it again to show you this video. But usually this is full of gas. So when you do that, you usually want to drain it first with this, or it will leak out when you pull that screw out. You just want to have something there so that it doesn't go all over the place. So then you look in here, and there's a float and a pin. And there's also a gasket where the bowl was in, so you don't want to lose that either. So around here, there's an O-ring. So I like to take that out so it doesn't fall out and get lost, which I'll do with this little screwdriver. It's pretty easy. It shouldn't be stuck in there. If it is stuck in there, just leave it so you don't break it. So yeah, so just go under there, and there it goes. Put it off to the side. Then there's this pin. This holds the float in, so you just kind of pull that out, put it somewhere where it's not going to roll around and get lost, and you pull the float out. This dangling thing here, that can come out too, so make sure that doesn't come out and get lost. So I'll just put that off to the side. So now what you can do is, if you look in the middle there, you see that brass piece, how it's got two slits on the end, on the sides? That's for a flat blade screwdriver. So you got to find a screwdriver that fits in that hole and fits in those grooves without being too big to ruin these threads on the inside, and it can't be so small that you strip that out on the inside. That brass piece is really easy to strip, and if you strip it out, you're all done. You have to buy a new carburetor. So I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so I used this because it's the perfect size and it fits in there perfectly, and then I just had a screwdriver handle that I put on there to loosen it. So then, you know, it just twists out on threads, and then when it stops unthreading, you get this little plug here. So what usually happens first is there's a tiny hole. I don't know if probably can't, well, you can see it, see the light through it. Well, that usually gets clogged first because that's where everything goes into the carburetor. So you grab a tool. This is already clean. Before you couldn't see light through this hole, but you grab the cleaner and you poke. You find the one that fits through there. This one goes through, but it's too loose, so that's a good place to start. And you just keep working your way up until one of them fits in there not so loose, and then you just work it through like that. Then you put it off to the side. And there's another piece in here that slides out, but sometimes it's kind of sticky, so it also pokes through. Let's see if I can get it good. See at the bottom here inside, oops, so can I, the bottom here inside, it pokes through the top, so I just tap that out and it will come out of the bottom. So when it comes out of the bottom, sometimes you just have to tap it out. You just got to be patient with it. You'll see this. You'll see all these little holes. It's hard to kind of tell through the camera. Oh, there we go. It's focused now. So all these holes in there. And so you take this cleaner and same thing. You just find the one that fits in. Some of these holes are pretty small. And you just work them in and out. On this one, there's 3 holes on one side, 3 holes on another, 2 on one side and 2 on another. And this big hole, the bigger holes. So you clean those out, and you blow out all the parts. You know, if whatever else, you can use compressed air or whatever. And then you look at this, and here's your carburetor again. And you do the same thing with this hole. Isn't as important. This is where the fuel comes in, so this is where the fuel line goes. The fuel comes down there and fills the bowl. Sometimes that gets clogged. You can clean that out too. But I also sprayed all this and blew it out with brake cleaner, so these are all clean. And then you look in here on the other side, and there's another brass port right there, right here. So let's see. So it's right here. So anywhere there's brass, So you clean out that port, you clean out that port right here. Same way with the thing, you know, this carburetor cleaning tool has all different sizes, works great. And then I like to go through, blow it all apart, blow it all off, make sure there's no dust that got in there. See, even little pieces of dust that get in here will cause problems. So once all that's done and it's blown and cleaned off and all that, you just grab this, grab the port, the jet, drop it back in. Grab this piece, drop it back in, then make sure it sits flat. Don't try to force it. This moves very easily. If it doesn't move very easily, it's because it's cross-threading, and that's not good. So it should move very easy. Don't cross-thread it, because again, you'll be done. You'll never get it back out, and you'll have to replace the carburetor. Another important thing to note is when you put that in and you screw this back in, it doesn't have to be crazy tight. I do it just as snug as I can with my fingers, and then just a slight bit more with the screwdriver. So now that that's all together, you grab your float. You know, again, make sure it's all clean, no dust. And then the hanging piece goes into this, and there you go. And it fits. You grab your pin, and you just put it back in. You line it up. And there you go. So now that that's all together, you grab your bowl. Oh, I almost forgot the O-ring. So make sure the O-ring goes in, or else it will leak when you put it back together. So the O-ring goes in there, it sits in the groove. Shouldn't be any issues. Make sure it doesn't get pinched. So once the O-ring's in the groove, take your bowl, put it back, grab your bolt, snug with the fingers, small wrench, and just a little bit more. It doesn't have to be crazy tight. Again, these are super fragile. If you do it crazy tight, you're going to break something. Okay. So now it's ready. Let's see if I can figure out. Okay. All right, now it's ready to go back on. So to put it back on, note the way it goes. So here's the fuel line, the fuel port. So it goes on this way. So there's a gasket on here too. This was stuck on there, so I didn't remove it. If it comes off, make sure you put it back, because again, this won't work right if it's not there. But because this one's on there and it's in good shape, I didn't bother getting it, taking it off. So now this slides back on to that. Oops, one step I missed actually, because you got to put this on. You got to put this back in first. So the way, see if I can easily. So anyway, it goes into the hole. There's a groove and a slot, so that's in there, and then that's in, and then you got to make sure this spring is still in the hole. And then you'll just hook it right into the hole that it's supposed to be on the carburetor. So then now slide that on. You can connect the fuel line at this point. Grab your pliers, bring this back down so it's holding it on. Spring clip, no problem. Okay, good. So now, with that, now the O-ring, I mean not the O-ring, the gasket goes back on. Everything's good. Good. Now the airbox housing goes back on. But one thing I do first is this little hose that we pulled out earlier. I like to put this through because it's kind of difficult to get in there. So now that that's in there a little bit, just grab the pliers and pull it through. All right. So I noticed my gasket fell off when I did that, so I'm going to put that back on. Okay. So now that's on. My hose, that's poking through. It's good there. Everything looks to be good working order. So now you take your two larger nuts and you put those on. And you tighten them. But again, you don't tighten these very tight. So you just nice and snug. Good. So yeah, once those are tight, you know, you put this tube back in. It goes over to that. Push that down. Make sure it stays nice and snug inside. Then you put your outer air box on with the 6 screws, well, the 6 nuts that we took off earlier. Keep in mind when you're tightening those on to do them finger tight. Don't tighten them on with a drill like I took them off, because you're likely to over tighten them and damage them. So those are all finger tight, and then I'm just going to use this ratchet and just do another, you know, just a little bit. Then you put your air filter back in. I don't have a new one. I'm only putting this in to show you. I'm not going to use it. You put your front cover back on and you're all done. And it will run like a charm. Easy squeezy.